Testing, testing, testing. Okay, no, that's the wrong one. It switched out on me, so I apologize for this. There we go. Okay. Alrighty, testing, testing. That's a little too loud. Okay, let's turn that down a bit. Okay. Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all here. Let me just see. Hold on. If this is right. Here we go. There we go. Testing, testing, testing. Okay. Alrighty. Good to see everyone here. Let me turn down the volume here a little bit and turn this one all the way up. There we go. Okay. Alrighty. Good to see everyone here. Good to see everyone. My name is over here, William W. I am the King's Bard. You'll find me on Facebook and on YouTube, as well as on Twitch, all under the name The King's Bard. It's good to see everyone, like I said. And I do want to say really quickly before we get started, if you are new here, if this is the first time you've been here, then welcome to you. Please, if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, please like the video. And also, if you're on Facebook, like the page as well, The King's Bard, and share the video, get it out there. If you're on YouTube, then subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and also, of course, you can check out my other videos. They're archived both on my Facebook page as well as on my YouTube channel, so please check those out. That being said, I don't really want to delay any longer. It's been a little bit here, so I suppose we shall go ahead and get started. That being said, as always, we're going to start with a word of prayer, so let's bow our heads and, yeah. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your grace and for your mercy. Thank you for your love and for your wonderful kindness. Lord, I just ask that you would please be with us, that you would please speak. We need you, Lord. Please speak. Please lead us and guide us. And above all other things, I ask that you would be lifted up and glorified. Thank you so much again for everything you have done. And just please teach us right now. If there's anything in between us and you, please remove it. And draw us away from the things of this world to you. Please teach us about the things that you would have us learn with health. Thank you so much. And I ask also that you would please bring people who need to hear. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray and ask these things, and thank you so much. Amen. Alrighty. Oh, I just remembered one big reason why I'm not getting a lot of people is that I have not shared it yet myself. Okay, let's see here. Anyway, so today we're going to be continuing on from yesterday. I know that last Monday. So last Monday we went over the principle of rest, which is a very, very important principle. I was hoping that I would be able to cover the principle of enough water as well, but this is not, that was unfortunately not the case. I wasn't able to really do that, and so we're going to kind of focus on that today. Previously, like I said, I was focusing, we did focus mostly on rest. Now today we're going to transition over to water. So please, please join us as we do that. So let's begin. Alrighty, so now once again we're going over the acronym RESTORED. The acronym is focused on it's 8 different principles of a healthy lifestyle. It's very simple, very easy to remember. RESTORED, and the first letter is the first R, and that is rest. And we covered that last week. This week we're covering the first E, enough water. This is a really, really awesome and an important thing, and we honestly don't focus on it, I think, as much as we really ought to. Water is really, really important to our everyday health, and as I have often said, it's not only is water the one of the best things that you can drink, it's also very useful in other ways too, not just internally but externally. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And as I said, it's used in many ways, both internally and externally, and both parts of the use of water are very, very, very important. There are internal uses and external uses. We're going to really focus on two particular internal, and we're going to really focus on, I guess you could say one, well, we're going to look at both. We're going to look at the two external uses as well. So the two internal uses are hydration and hydrotherapy. Hydrotherapy does have some internal applications, but we're going to mainly focus on hydration as far as the internal uses are. Because hydration is what normally most people are going to be well aware of. There are a few hydropathic or hydrotherapy applications that are internal, but generally speaking, hydrotherapy is more reserved for the next section, external uses. And so that's what we're really going to be looking at here. And I do want to say, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to ask them. If you're watching via the chat, then go ahead and check that out, and we will definitely be able to answer that as much as I can. If you are in the Zoom, of course, you can ask at any point. And I will be having a Q&A session at the end of this if you really want to have any, if you have any questions. So that being said, anyway, continuing on here. So once again, internal uses are hydration and a few hydrotherapy applications. Externally, we have hygiene, which is really, really important and has been stressed for the past almost a year now. Actually, just about a year, since the whole, virus and whatnot has come out. So hygiene has been really stressed this past year, but it's also really important overall. And of course, the other thing, which is something that I have talked about in a great deal in my natural remedies presentations, we're also looking at hydrotherapeutic applications. So this is, again, you do have some internal, but most of hydrotherapy is external, and so that's where that really comes into play. So we're going to really focus mostly on external hydrotherapy, and then on hydration, and yes, also hygiene. But first off, we're going to look at hydration. So when it comes to hydration, when it comes to internal uses of water, let's focus a little bit more on hydration. Water is used in almost, if not every process of our body. It carries nutrients to the different organs and the different cells. It eliminates waste from the body, and it also helps regulate temperature. This is really, really, really important. I can't actually overstate this enough. Water is the single most important drink in thing that you can take into your body outside of air that you need. When it comes to survival, just as an illustration, there's the rule of 3. You can last 30 days without food, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and then 3 minutes without oxygen. So now, of course, that's most people. There's some people who can hold their breath for almost 20 minutes. So, that's one thing, but they're trained for that. But again, you can last for 30 days without food, only 3 without water. So water is really, really, really important. When it comes, as I said, it's used in pretty much every single process our body has, whether that's carrying nutrients to the different organs, the different cells, or taking waste away, and regulating the temperature, and a bunch of other things as well. It's an important component of many chemical reactions. It's just really important overall. And so hydration is very, very important. A good rule of thumb for hydration is about half your body weight in ounces. Now this is true, but you should still get at least 8 8-ounce glasses of water, or 64 ounces of water a day. So that's a minimum. All right, of course, it depends on where you are. If you are, for example, in a really, really hot environment, and you are going, If you're working really hard and it's really hot, then you're going to want to definitely drink more. If you're very active, you're also going to want to drink more in general. If you are heavier in weight, then you are going to want to drink more as well. So hydration is a good rule of thumb is half your body weight in ounces, but once again, that's not that is a bare minimum of 8 glasses of water a day. Otherwise, you risk dehydration, which is something else entirely. It's really important to avoid that as much as possible. There are also, as I mentioned, a few internal hydrotherapeutic applications. This is where you use water at different temperatures internally to stimulate different body processes or organ systems. This would include temperature control, vomiting, and waste elimination, or just general cleansing. The particular applications I'm referring to are what are known as emetic applications, where you would induce vomiting, or where you're drinking a hot or a cold drink to kind of help with the temperature, and also waste elimination. Now this, of course, would be none other than the infamous enema, which is a very, very useful tool, but it's something that you still want to make sure that as much as possible, you don't want to come to rely on that sort of a thing, but it is important, and it's actually very, very important, and so it is very useful. Oh dear, I am obscuring here. Let me go up here. Okay. So when it comes to internal hydropathic or hydrotherapeutic applications, you're really looking at just warm or cool drinks, or you're looking at a lukewarm water, which is an emetic application where you are stimulating vomiting, or you're looking at an enema where you're helping to cleanse the bowels, the colon more specific, or excuse me, not the colon, cleanse the bowels basically from So it's really important from excess waste and buildup and toxins and things like that. Now there have been a few fads going around that really focus on enemas. For example, the very famous coffee enema. That sort of enema is really focused less on cleansing and more focused on administering some sort of chemical directly into the bloodstream, because an enema ensures, because of the way that the colon works, because of the way that that area of the body works, and the function that it has, chemicals, especially liquids, are absorbed relatively quickly. And so, of course, there are some practices that are not health-based that some people do, but again, the coffee enema has been particularly one very how shall I say this? One very popular fad. Enemas like that, it is really best to avoid. Now, some people may not be happy with me for saying that, considering that the coffee enema is quite, how shall I say it, quite popular in some circles, and has a very, very strict following. But really, coffee is something you shouldn't take into your body ever, except in the most dire of medicinal circumstances. And so to then put it into your body in an enema form where it goes straight into your bloodstream instead of going through your digestive system, that's really, really not good. And so there's a lot of risks associated with coffee enemas and things like that. So you really want to avoid those. Those are not healthy for you. Those are not good. Those are fads, not facts. When you're looking at enemas, really your best bet is just your basic water enema. Okay, that's really what you're looking at. Now, again, there should be some, caution. I do want to say, my disclaimer I didn't put up here. The information in this presentation, I will say this now, the information presented today in this presentation is not intended for the diagnosis, treatment, prevention, or cure of any disease. If you want to do anything, if you want to have any sort of make any changes to a regimen, or if you want to implement any natural remedies or anything else, please consult with a physician before doing so. It's really important that you do that. I forgot to put the disclaimer in at the beginning, and so I'm putting this in now. Please, don't do anything before you consult with a physician. Really important. Okay. Now let's focus more so on hydration, because hydration is really, really, really important. And I forgot to put the effects on that. Oops. Okay. Water is known as the universal solvent. This means that generally things dissolve in it, and that's because water is a polar molecule. Now that might be a little bit too in-depth for a lot of people, but basically what it means is that it has an electromagnetic charge, and so it really helps to draw impurities and things like that into the water, and also it helps suck things into and bind to water, or at least get into it, so things dissolve more easily into solution of water. Now, of course, there are exceptions. Non-polar molecules, namely oil especially, those are really, really difficult to... you need to have something else that mixes with both water and oil in order to really get oil and water to mix. Of course, if you shake it up and you leave it for a while and so on, eventually oil and water will mix, but that's it takes a long time, or it takes a while, and that's not the most efficient process. So it's really better to have an emulsifier of some sort. So water is known as the universal solvent. Pretty much anything can be dissolved in it. And most everything in the body can be, with the exception again of some fats, just about everything can be dissolved in water. And this is really important. This is why the body uses it to transport nutrients and take away waste and such. As I said, mentioned it here. Water is also a fantastic temperature regulator. This is really good. The temperature of water, or rather the specific heat of water, which is how much energy you need to put in order for it to be raised 1 degree, is 1 calorie per, 1 calorie per gram, which is the highest of any natural substance. 1 calorie per gram, that's ridiculously high. No other natural substance has a specific heat this high. This means that water does not conduct heat very well at all. Now this might be confusing to some people because water is an excellent conductor of electricity. Or at least it's a decent conductor of electricity, although the dissolved stuff really does help with that too. So if it has salt in there, that really makes it go. But water is a really good insulator, actually, when it comes to temperature. And this is actually it's really interesting. This is the reason why islands and island nations and things like that tend to be more moderate in their temperatures, even if they're in higher up places. I remember, well, you can look, for example, in say not Iceland, but up north of Norway in Svalbard, I think. I think that's the island, but maybe not. It's not Skarsvåg. That's a village that's on the continent. But there is an island north of Norway. It's actually also to the west of Norway. It's not far from. It's farther north than Iceland, but it's actually relatively warm. It's a lot warmer than Greenland, internal Greenland, for example. And again, Iceland is also relatively warm considering how far north it is. And that is mostly due to the fact that it's a relatively small island, relatively I say, surrounded by a relatively large body of water. Land cools down very quickly. That's why Alaska, especially internal Alaska, is very, very cold, while the coast is much warmer, at least, relatively, right? So the land cools down much more quickly, while the water stays warm, or at least relatively warm, for a lot longer. So water is actually a great temperature regulator, and in our bodies, it's a fantastic insulator. It really helps us to moderate our temperature. This is really important. Yes. Now, of course, another way that the body does this is also by sweating, because when you sweat, you're exuding water, but what's happening is the water is evaporating, which means it's warming up, right? And as it warms up, it takes that heat away from your skin, absorbs it into itself, and cools you off. So sweat helps cool the body. And being well hydrated can help also maintain an even body temperature, because the more water you have, the more optimal your hydration, the more easily your body is able to regulate its temperature by directing the flow of blood and such, which is an aqueous solution. It's a water solution to whatever area that needs to be warmed up or cooled down or whatever it might be. Now again, as I said, at least 64 ounces or 8-ounce glasses of water a day, but a really good rule of thumb, like as I mentioned before, is half your body weight in ounces. That being said, caffeinated drinks and sugary drinks do not count. Why not? Because they're diuretic. Now what does that mean? Well, a diuretic is a chemical that stimulates the elimination of water, in particular through the kidneys and the bladder. So it stimulates urination and urine production. This can be useful when you have too much water, when you have water retention, water buildup. However, this is not useful for when you're trying to stay hydrated. So people who drink lots of sodas or lots of coffee or tea, of any, not herbal tea, or most kinds of real tea, black tea, white tea, green tea, oolong, Earl Grey, all that. Yeah, all of that is really, that's not good for your hydration. And this includes iced tea, by the way. Herbal tea is a little different. Most herbal teas have no caffeine, so that's a little bit different, but it's still not ideal. Fruit juices are also not in the same camp as sodas and energy drinks and things like that. Of course, energy drinks also usually have caffeine, so that's something else again. But caffeinated beverages and carbonated beverages and sugary beverages are really, really not good for your kidneys. They're not good for your hydration, because it actually takes more water to. Basically, you have to use water in order to balance out all the sugar for the sugary drinks, and so it's really not a good thing. So you end up using more water than you actually take in. So caffeinated and sugary drinks do not count for your water intake. That means you need to be drinking water all the time. So drink your water. It's really important to do that. Not soda, not coffee, not Monster drinks, none of that stuff. Instead, just drink water. Now, that doesn't mean that fruit juices and other things like that or herbal teas are bad. Okay, there's nothing wrong with having those things once in a while, or especially with herbal teas when you need them. But the best beverage, the supreme beverage that should be drunk, is plain old water. Now, again, as I said, there's nothing wrong with a little fruit juice here and there, or even fresh juice, or if you're doing a juice fast or something like that. That's also important. But don't neglect water in lieu of those other sources of liquid. You really want to make sure that you're drinking your water, not just you're not just having how shall I say this? Yeah, you're not just doing the what am I thinking of here? You're not just drinking the fruit juice or the juice or the herbal or tea. You're actually drinking water along with those things. So make sure that you do that, because that's really, really important. Next, we're going to look at external uses of water. We're going to kind of rehash this, summarize it, and then we're going to get into it a little bit more. So you've got the two other ones, hygiene here, and we're also going to talk about hydrotherapy, external hydrotherapy, but we'll look first at hygiene. Hygiene, this is really hand washing and bathing. We're really going to focus more on hand washing because bathing is really a major part of our culture now. Bathing, showering, that sort of a thing is a major part of our culture these days. Hand washing it really should be as well. And they seem like common sense today, like, oh, well, you do need to wash your hands, but this is not actually something that was well known even 150 years ago, which is relatively recent as far as history is concerned, although some people may beg to differ. But it wasn't until the 19th century, the mid-19th century, that people started going, maybe we should wash our hands. It was really actually quite interesting that the individual who decided, hey, this is probably a good idea, actually got it by looking at the Bible and saying, hey, they washed their hands a bunch. I wonder if that would help reduce mortality rates in my hospital. And he had his doctors all wash their hands, and his nurses and everything else. And everyone thought he was absolutely bonkers nuts until his death rates plummeted. And he had the single best and healthiest hospital out of any of the hospitals really in the nation or really in the world. I mean, and so it was. It's actually quite interesting that this was the case. Bathing also seems like common sense. And these things are vital for regulation of disease. Your skin, believe it or not, is part of your breathing, and it's part of your waste elimination. And actually, some of the biggest problems that people have when it comes to waste elimination are not just through the typical organs that you think of, your bowels, your bladder, etc. It's actually also through your skin. Your skin is a huge eliminatory organ, and it can get clogged up. It can all sorts of things, and you also do breathe through your skin. Not nearly as much as through your lungs, but if it's all clogged up with waste, if it's all clogged up with oils and whatnot, again, some of that is good. There's a healthy amount, like lotion is important. But, when you start to get greasy and such like that, that's not good. On top of the fact that you have disease issues and things like that, you actually won't be able to think as clearly. You won't be optimal if you're not keeping clean. As a matter of fact, there's a story, and this is again from the 19th century when people didn't know any better, from the early 19th century, where there was a mother who had a young son. I don't know exactly his age. But he was going to be in a school play, and so they wanted to do something. He played some role, and I don't know what it was. I forget, and I'm not even sure if it was mentioned. But this poor mother, who wanted so desperately for her son to, be successful, and the people, of course, who were also in the play and are organizing it, they wanted to really make this a dazzling play. And so they decided, well, we want to make this kid look great for his role. And so they covered him head to toe, obviously leaving his mouth and nose open so that he could breathe that way. They covered him from head to toe in gold leaf. Now, gold leaf is very, very, very thin gold foil. It is it's gold that it's incredibly delicate. It turns to powder if you touch it. It's the stuff that they fill, when you see a Bible, one of those leather-bound Bibles, and it's got the gold letters, Holy Bible and such. Usually, especially for the really nice Bibles, that has been filled in with gold leaf. That's what gold leaf is, and so it's very, very delicate, and so they covered him with it, and he unfortunately died because he couldn't breathe through his skin. Even though his mouth and his nose were open, he couldn't breathe through his skin, and the elimination, it was just a big problem. There are other examples of throughout history where people have been, not patients, but people have ended up being covered in turpentine, and dying of suffocation because they just can't breathe through their skin. So actually, keeping yourself clean and bathing and such is vital for your own health. Never mind for the regulation of disease, for parasites and mites and things like that kind of live on there. If you don't take care of yourself, there's all sorts of reasons why you want to make sure that you're staying clean, hygiene-wise. And of course, hand washing is also really important, but we'll talk about that more. And another point is that not only will you clear the skin of impurities so that you can breathe better, but that you will actually not reabsorb them, which is kind of a big deal. You don't want to reabsorb waste products because those are toxic to you. That's why your body's trying to get rid of them. Now, hydrotherapy, the body has many different reflexes that are stimulated by temperature. When you manipulate these with the proper skill, you can cause pretty much any desired effect that you want. Hydrotherapy is the single most powerful system of natural remedies known to mankind. It is absolutely phenomenal. Herbalism, as much, I'm an herbalist, I love herbalism, I love herbs and such. But my go-to outside of lifestyle is hydrotherapy, because hydrotherapy is just so phenomenally powerful. There is nothing else that I have ever seen that is just so effective at what it does. As the old saying goes, the skin is a harp of 1,000 strings, and a skilled hydrotherapist can play whatever tune he wishes upon it. It's a really, really fascinating thing. And it's absolutely true. You really, bottom line, when you know what you're doing, you can get the body to do whatever you need it or want it to do just by using different applications of different temperatures of water in different areas of the body. It's phenomenal. It's really, really interesting just how useful hydrotherapy is. But before we talk about that, let's rehash on hygiene. This is really important. As we said, it's well known to be important today. I do want to cover washing your hands because I have seen so many people not wash their hands properly. This is a really big problem, and of course, in today's day and age, it's really important to know how to wash your hands properly. It's huge, and of course, I was taught how to do this because I worked on the food service for ages and ages. But on top of that, there's just there's a lot of this that's just common sense. So at least these days. So when you wash your hands, you want to make sure you do it properly. You're not. I've seen too many people do this where they put their hand, especially kids, where they put soap in their hand. Their hands are still dry. They put soap on their hands, and then they wet the soap in their hands all at once, and then they scrub it under the sink, and then they're done in under 10 seconds. That's not washing your hands. That's getting your hands wet with a little soap. That's not going to do a whole lot. Washing your hands needs to be a much more thorough exercise. The water should be, and a lot of them do it with cold water too. Your water should be as hot as you can stand it. Now, of course, this is, you're looking at safety issues, right? So you don't want to get it, I can't give a certain temperature, right? It is only as hot as you can stand it. Your water that you're washing your hands with should be as hot as you can stand it. Then you should not apply your soap until after your hands are already wet. Reason being, if you have your hands dry and you put the soap on it and then you stick your hands under the water, you're already washing the soap off and you haven't actually done anything yet. So you want to make sure that you have your hands wet so that you can lather up once you've got the soap on your hands. So wet your hands, then put the soap on. Okay, you don't want to have soap then water. It's water then soap. Okay, so it's really, really important. Your hands should also be scrubbed for at least 30 seconds before rinsing them. This, of course, there's lots of fancy things that you can do. There's the ABC song that you can sing if they teach ABC song or Happy Birthday to kids, and as long as you sing it the way that you should sing it, there you go. Of course, actually something that you can do, I believe it's Happy Birthday twice is what they'll tell you. So when you sing Happy Birthday twice in your head, then that's the go-to. That's what they tell the kids, or the ABC song as well. But and so I'm used to working with kids on that. But you can also find short little songs or little ditties or such, or you can just count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and so on, or however you want to count seconds. But whatever works for you, do it. So scrub your hands for at least 30 seconds. Make sure to get under your nails. It's really important because that's where germs like to hide. Under your nails, in between your fingers, all over the place, your wrists. And of course, food service, you should really be rinsing your whole forearm too, but most people aren't in that. So at any rate, of course, regular bathing and showering should be practiced. This is something that's well known in our culture. In fact, almost too much. Sometimes people will bathe so much that they actually end up damaging their skin because they're stripping away the natural oils too much. People will know this about dogs. You don't want to bathe or scrub your dog too often because it can actually damage their skin, damage their hair, dry it out. It's really not a good idea. And the same thing applies to us people too. And I just realized I am blocking this again. So we want to make sure that we're bathing and showering regularly, but we don't want to do it to excess. A good, it should, once every day is perfectly acceptable. Sometimes, depending on how hot it is, depending on how much you've been sweating and working, sometimes twice a day is appropriate. And no less often than once a week. And that's really anathema in our culture to only bathe or shower once a week. And of course, if you're a teenager or if you're in another group that is going through rapid body changes and such, you also want to make sure that you're doing regular cleansing. It's really important, especially as a teenager, because you're growing, you're aging, your skin is changing. That's what acne is. Your skin is trying to stay soft, and it ends up producing too much of its natural lotion, so to speak, natural oils, and so there's a lot of problems. So you want to make sure that whatever you do, you're doing it reasonably. You're not, bathing or showering 4 times a day. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're also not doing it, that you're doing it regularly. It should be regularly. Alrighty, now we're going to look at a basic overview of hydrotherapy. Now this is going to get into a little bit of detail, not a whole lot, and the reason is because hydrotherapy is, while very simple as far as the actual applications, the theory behind it, and the reasons why it works are really, really difficult for a lot of people. The theory is complicated and long-winded. It requires a very thorough knowledge of anatomy and physiology, and that's not something that really is within my scope or within our time frame to kind of really expand upon. So, but the basic ideas are really important, and these are what we'll be going over. Now, really, when it comes to hydrotherapy, you have 3 temperatures of water. So 3 temperatures of water. First, you have warm or hot. Now, again, I class these together because they both have the same effect on the body, and the body has the same response to both. Warm and hot is just that hot is a lot stronger of an action and a lot stronger of a reaction too than warm, but it still has the same basic action or reaction. Then you have neutral. This is water that's about 92 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Although it's relative to skin temperature, I forgot to put that. But this is all relative to your skin temperature. And the skin temperature of different parts of your body is going to be different. Your hands are generally going to be cooler than your skin temperature-wise than your core. And so you really want to, but overall, it depends on. This is relative to the skin temperature. There's not really any exact formula here. But when it comes to warm and hot, you're going to want, that's generally going to be warmer than 95 degrees. Neutral water is going to be anywhere from 92 to 95 degrees. And then the third one is cool or cold, and this is cooler than 92 degrees. And so now again, this is relative to skin temperature. So if you have someone who has a fever, warm or hot is going to, of a fever of say 100, warm or hot is going to be really anything 101 or over as far as temperature is concerned. Neutral is going to be neutral is going to be somewhere around like 98 to or 90, 96 to 98, somewhere in there. And cool or cold is really going to be anything down below that. So It's really relative as far as skin temperature goes, but generally speaking, you're looking at 95 and above for warm and hot, 92 to 95 for neutral, and 92 and below for cool or cold. And, again, each of these groups will have different actions and different reactions that the body has against it. And just kind of cover it. Now, again, I want to say that, remember, I want to kind of emphasize this here. Each temperature has its own effect on the body. This is not. This is what the temperature does to the to the cells in the body, to the body itself. Okay, this is not how the body responds to it. This is the actual effect of the temperature on the body. Now, this is really important to remember because there are two ways to use in hydrotherapy. Two things that you're looking for. You're looking for action, which is what we're looking at right now, the effect of the temperature on the body, and there's also reaction, which is the body's response to what the temperature does to the body. So action and reaction. The action of warm or hot is an increase in cellular activity. It stimulates the body. It stimulates cellular activity. This can be clearly seen when you put, for example, a piece of bread in a warm, moist area. You're going to, even if it's in a warm area that's kind of moist, you're going to be getting a lot of mold growth. And if you take two of them, you take one that's warm and moist in one, and another that is cool and moist, you're going to get mold growth on both. But the mold growth on the warm and moist one is going to be way more pronounced and cover a lot more of the bread than the cold and moist one. So there is still going to be mold growth, but not nearly as much, and it has to do with the temperature. Neutral, on the other hand, has a very specific and very interesting effect on the body. It moderates or controls temperature. It doesn't really have a whole lot of effect on its own, but what it does is it helps maintain the body's temperature, especially in a general application. When you're looking at a localized application, like a compress or a fomentation or something like that, although fomentations aren't neutral. But if you're looking at a compress or say for a foot bath or something like that, it's not as much. It's still kind of there, but not really. Generally, when in that respect, for localized applications, you're really just looking at warm and cool or hot and cold. Neutral isn't really there unless you're looking at a heating compress. That's really what you're looking at. And again, that's usually you start out in cool and then your body heats it up to warm. So, but when it comes to generalized applications, neutral applications will help moderate the body's temperature. This means that the body's nervous system doesn't have to, its own thermostat doesn't have to do as much work. It still does some work, but it helps it take a break, and that's why neutral applications, neutral baths, general neutral applications are sedatives, or they act as sedatives. They help relax the body and help soothe the body. I'm not talking about warm and hot. That's, again, this is something, I'll talk about that in a minute. I know that, when people climb out of a warm or a hot bath, or they feel tired or relaxed or something like that, and that is not a sedation. We'll talk about that in a second. A neutral bath would be one that is a true sedative as far as hydrotherapy is concerned. Cool and cold, on the other hand, decreases cellular activity. And this is why, for example, we have refrigerators. We want to make sure that our food doesn't decay very long. It's also doesn't decay for a lot longer. So it's helped to preserve food and decrease microbial activity. This is the same reason as why the hospitals tend to be a lot cooler. It's to prevent cellular activity. It's to prevent germs from spreading and so on. And these are the different effects that these temperatures have on the body. But the body then responds to these temperatures, at least to warm and hot and cool and cold. And that is the reaction, and each reaction is different. For warm and hot, the body says, "Oh, I don't like to be pushed like that. I don't like that that you're speeding me up. I'm gonna pump the brakes," and the body will actually decrease cellular activity. And there's a lot of reasons for this. This mainly has to do with temperature regulation. Once again, your body is saying, well, I'm overheating. I don't want to be working as much because that's producing too much heat. And if I get too hot, then I'm going to die. So your body slows down cellular activity so that it can then begin to work more, so that it can kind of help get rid of the heat that's going on, and at the same time not produce very much heat. Neutral does not have a reaction at all because it's neutral. It's not hot, it's not cold, it's just kind of there. This is the reason that sensory deprivation chambers, which have become more popular recently, it's the same it's the same basic principle. There's no reaction, so your body doesn't respond in a certain way. It's just kind of allowed to be. And that's something that's really interesting and really important. Cool and cold, on the other hand, your body says, "Ooh, yeah, I'm getting my temperature is overall getting too low. I need to make sure I don't slow down. I want to make sure that I don't get too cold. So I'm going to increase my temperature production." This is really, really important, actually, because cool and cold, this kind of reaction is known as a tonic reaction. It helps strengthen your system. It helps get your system going. It's really, really, really useful. It's phenomenally useful for someone who is slow or who is not having whose system needs a boost. This is the best tonic that you can have. It's really quite phenomenal. I've spoken much on the virtues of cool and cold bathing and showering, and also contrast showering, which kind of combines the best of both worlds of warm and cool, or hot and cold. And so it's really, really important to remember that remember the difference, because you may also want to actually use the action of the temperature. You may want to use cool or cold to slow down cellular activity, as in the case of trying to cool down a fever. You don't want to use super cold because your body's going to react super strong to that. So instead you use cool, almost neutral temperatures, and your body doesn't have a very strong reaction to that. It says, you know what, I'm not that cold, and you keep applying it. So instead of your body heating up the area, it just kind of you just keep overriding that reaction, and eventually your body says, okay, fine, I'll stop. I can't do this anymore, and you start cooling down the body. And so that's really important. So cool and cold, so reaction and action and reaction actually are both very, very useful to in different purposes and for different things. And so it's really important to know that the action and reaction of each one. And so actually a lot of mistakes have been made in the past regarding this, on this very issue, especially with cold. People thought, well, if a little cold is good, more must be better. If you put it in for a little bit, then put them in for a long time. What was known as heroic treatment. And this, of course, resulted in the inducing of hypothermia, which is dangerously low body temperatures, and in many, many, many deaths, because people just simply did not understand this basic principle that cold inherently slows down. It decreases cellular activity. It does not inherently increase cellular activity like heat does. The increase in activity is a result of your body responding to the temperature. So that's really important to know. And vice versa, also true. Heat is not something that helps you relax. Heat is not something that helps you calm down or puts you to sleep. What heat does, actually, if anything, what heat does is it doesn't just make you slow down. It actually is what's known as an atonic reaction, or it is actually quite harmful for you to have the reaction that heat gives you. You really want to override the reaction of heat I don't think there are any cases that I have ever seen recommended in any of the books on hydrotherapy I've read that say that at any point that you want the reaction that heat gives. Um, there may be something out there, but I can't think of one. You don't really want an atonic reaction. You're really looking for a tonic reaction. Um, and so usually you're finishing on cold. Now there are exceptions, but that's with very, very, very short, very warm, very hot applications where you're not going to have a very, very strong atonic reaction. You're just really trying to get a stimuli going on, stimulating its cellular activity. So yes. Anyway, that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and open this up to questions. I believe that's the next. Yes. So we're going to open this up for questions. If you are in the chat, go ahead and start typing your questions now. If you're in the stream, and of course, if you are watching this via the recorded video and you can't join us, you can leave your questions and comments down in the comments below, whether on the Facebook page or on YouTube, and you can get those questions answered. In the meantime, I'm going to turn to, while I'm waiting for the chat to kind of open up here, I'm going to turn to the Zoom meeting just to see if they have any questions for us at this time. Yes.
William?
Yes.
I have a question about, some people end their shower with cold, and I'm confused about the term that you're using about decreasing cellular activity.
Yes.
So, well, let me get to the point. I feel like for some time now, my back has been so stressed that I'm afraid it's going to go into a spasm. Mm-hmm. And so, although I might like to end my shower in cold, I've been avoiding that. I do feel good when I can soak in a bathtub in hot water. But can you talk to that just a little?
Yes, that's a very, very good question and a very, very good point. Yes, so when it comes to that really is focusing on muscle. And heat does help muscles relax while cold stimulates contraction, because your body is going, okay, with cold your body is saying, okay, I've got to speed up, I've got to start warming up, and so it stimulates your muscles to start working so that it doesn't get really cold. So in that sense, cold is not really going to be the best option in that respect. What you really ought to be looking at is massage therapy or something like that, and maybe also a visit to a chiropractor's place. I would say, just to see kind of what may be going on there, and see if because that is actually a major thing, getting a chiropractic adjustment. Because you may have a pinched nerve, your system, your spine may not be quite properly aligned, and so it could cause tension at some point. Or if there's an injury or something like that, then that's also very important as well. So, yes. Now, once again, when it comes to cold, the slowing down or the decreasing of cellular activity, that is the inherent action of cold upon the body. Your body will tend to respond to that by saying, no, I don't want to get cold, I've got to heat up instead. And so it will stimulate your muscles, it'll stimulate action, it'll stimulate itself into speeding up cellular activity. Which is why when you jump in and jump out of a cold shower real quick, you're, oh man, I'm invigorated. That's because your body is responding to that, right? The idea of the polar bear challenge, many people have heard of it, or what's another one? Cryotherapy and things like that. It all works under the same basic principle. Your body is responding to that. Your body is saying, no, I don't want to slow down. And so that's what produces that very strong response. But when it comes to the muscles in your back, which is what you're referring to, and you're afraid it's going to go into spasm. That's something that is focused more on the muscles. And cold does stimulate muscles to contract because your body is saying, no, 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 I don't want to do that. Or rather, cold doesn't do that, but your body responds to that by saying, no, 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 I don't want to do that. So heat, on the other hand, your body says, oh, I don't want my muscles to be working very hard because it's going to generate more heat. So it's going to get your muscles to relax. That being said, again, I would strongly recommend you check out a chiropractor. You would go out to a massage therapist and get that sorted out, because that sort of attention is, I mean, obviously, as you know, it's not comfortable and it's not healthy. And actually, any tension along your back and improper positioning of your spine can affect your brain and your thinking. So be mindful of that. That's all I can really say on the subject. I'm not seeing any questions from the stream. Are there any other questions from the Zoom?
Can you, I understand that, well, I have a tendency to have cold extremities sometimes. And I'm under the impression that if I were to spend some cold shower time, that would then prevent my extremities from getting cold. I don't know.
Yes, that can have an effect, and it would certainly stimulate it. And the reason is because it has to do with the way that your body works. Once again, you're looking at stimulating cellular activity. You're looking at your body producing heat. And so if you have cold extremities, your body is going to say, hey, I actually want to make sure that everything is nice and warmed up. And so it really sends the blood out to all those different areas, as well as, first, you have a retraction to the core of the blood. An initial, hey, it's cold out there, I want to keep the core organs, the vital organs, nice and safe and warm. But then when the body suddenly realizes, oh, actually, I need to fight up against this, it'll start producing more and more and more heat, and then radiating that heat out to the different extremities. So yes, when it comes to cold temperatures or cool applications, cold applications, especially general ones, it can and often does stimulate the circulation to the extremities. That being said, when it comes to extremities and things like that, I do want to utter a word of caution here. Cool and cold does have a negative impact as far as blood pressure is concerned. So if you have issues with blood pressure or with poor circulation, you really want to make sure that you watch it, because it does cause a spike in blood pressure. So you want to be careful with that. Anybody who exhibits cyanosis of the skin, so that's where your skin starts to turn kind of blue, you can see the blue blood vessels. At that time, you really want to avoid that. And again, I do want to say as well, if no temperature should be outside your comfort zone. So it shouldn't be colder than you can take. It shouldn't be warmer than you can take. And I would strongly encourage the use of really, really, really mild temperatures and then building your way up. Just like exercise or anything else, you don't want to start out with the biggest thing you can do. If I was to start out by jumping in 60-degree water, like a friend of mine who was, lived in Alaska for several years and who was doing that all the time in winter, and not in Alaska, in Canada, off the coast of Canada in wintertime. I wouldn't do so well, but with him, he was quite sturdy and been doing it for a long time and worked his way up to that. So, you want to make sure you're using milder temperatures. The other thing I would say regarding that is that the circulation to the skin, circulation to the extremities is something that can also really be helped with friction, exfoliation, etc. Skin brushing, it's also really important, and especially if you have extremities that don't really quite function well, friction of the skin brushing, etc. Those things are things that you can really do without the general cold applications that will actually help stimulate circulation in those areas, and you don't have to worry about the contraindications of cold in that respect. You don't have to worry about the spike in blood pressure. So that is also something that you can do. And of course, skin brushing or friction. Friction can be done with a sheet, with the bare hands. Exfoliation is also very useful just because you'll most likely have pore elimination through the skin in those areas. So it's really important to take a look at all of that and really see in that regard. I'm still not seeing any questions in the chat, so I think I'm going to go ahead and assume there aren't any. Any last questions from the Zoom?
The skin brushing you're talking about.
Well, obviously you're going to want... there are skin brushes out there. You can find them in different places. You can also find, of course, for exfoliation, a loofah is what I would recommend. Those are very natural. I mean, they're from a plant, so I would recommend that. Just because those are they're very good for the environment and they're completely natural. That being said, when it comes to skin brushing or friction, again with friction, which has the same function as skin brushing, you can use your hands. You can use a dry sheet. That's also something that you can do. Skin brushing. There are skin brushes out there that you can get as well. I haven't been able to find any in you can find some in Walmart. They'll have facial cleansing brushes. And those are things, those will have bristles soft enough to work on the whole skin. You don't really want one of those shower brushes or whatever that, that's a little rough for skin brushing, for just dry skin brushing. So you're going to look at more something that's used for dry skin brushing in that regard, yeah. Alrighty. You're welcome. Alrighty, let's go ahead and close out with a word of prayer, and I will see you guys this weekend on Saturday, Sabbath at 10 o'clock, where we'll be looking at some more sacred history. So let's go ahead and bow our heads, and we'll close out. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much once again for your grace, for your mercy, and for your wonderful gift of Jesus Christ. Lord, I just ask that you would please be with us now and keep us as we go our separate ways, that you would anoint us with your Spirit, that you would fill us with your grace, and that above all else, that Jesus would be lifted up. Make us witnesses of you wherever we go. And Lord, help us to apply the things that we have learned here. And moreover, Lord, I just ask that above all else, Jesus would be lifted up, that we would be drawn to him. And Lord, please revive us. We need it desperately. Thank you so much. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray and ask all these things, and thank you. Amen. Alrighty, once again, thank you everybody for being here, for joining us. I will see you guys at 10 o'clock on Saturday, on Sabbath, or 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, where we will be beginning our sacred history. 11:15 for our Bible study, and 12:30 for our Bardic session. So I will see you guys then, and thank you so much.